All right, people.
Mhm.
Decoding Babylon is back. And this week we are talking Project
Project
Bluebeam.
Bluebeam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so obviously, when you think about the strong delusion,
Mhm.
I think a lot of people believe it includes Project Bluebeam.
People think that the Project Bluebeam is like they're gonna project the stuff into the sky, but I think that the Bible even tells us that that stuff is going to happen in the sky, right? It says in Revelations, it says there will be signs in the sky.
Oh yeah. Well, first, before we get it too far into it, Brian, let's tell the people what actually. I think a lot of people probably hear
Mhm.
that, and I heard that for a
Mhm.
while before I looked into it. What is
Mhm.
Project Bluebeam?
Yeah, so Project Bluebeam supposedly is a governmental project that is just like, MK Ultra. It's a top secret project where they've developed some type of projection mapping technology that can be broadcast and shot into the atmosphere or shot into the sky to fake simulate like things that are real, like holographic, real simulated things in the upper atmosphere, and that you might be able to project, for instance, an alien spacecraft that's not really there, but it will look like it's actually there in the sky in three-dimensional space, and or the second coming of Christ, for example.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So let's see. So I went over to Wikipedia and I figured obviously this is the place where there's nothing but facts. So
Totally facts.
let's just see. Well, this is the facts as people know them. So let's just read what it says.
Mhm.
It says that there's a guy named is it Serge Monast, was a Canadian investigative journalist, poet, essayist, and conspiracy theorist. Sounds like a pretty cool guy. He is known to English speaking readers mainly for originating the conspiracy theory Project Bluebeam, which concerns an alleged plot to facilitate a totalitarian world government by destroying traditional religions, replacing them with new age belief system using NASA technology. Okay, so that's where you get into like, so what is, see, that I think that is what most people really understand it to be, is like
Yeah.
obviously it's some form of deception, it's some form of
Mhm.
trickery in order to usher in once again the new world order, which should not even be conspiracy theory. They openly advocate for this thing. So
Yeah.
this obviously make, I think I get, as I read the book, Along Came a Pale Horse by who is it? Gosh, I always forget his name.
I forget his name too. Yeah.
William Cooper. William Cooper. Along Came a Pale Horse, which
Mhm.
his theory was that one day the United States government was going to fake an alien
Fake an alien
invasion
invasion.
in order to usurp more power. And obviously,
Mhm.
how would they fake an alien invasion?
Mhm.
Possibly by use of like some kind of a holographic technology, perhaps.
Just like that's really interesting because bringing up the thing that happened in Vegas with the aliens, people are, they caught that on film. Like there was a green light and people heard an explosion. There was something,
Mm-hmm.
and then the people, which is really cool. Maybe we'll get to talk to those people soon. But the people that were involved in that, um, physically saw something, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, could this have been? A lot of people are speculating, like, oh, it's Project Bluebeam. It's Project Bluebeam. Maybe it's not even real. Maybe it's not
Mm-hmm.
even real. But maybe it's actually the opposite. Maybe it is real. But Project Bluebeam, and this is my theory, is the deception that you will think that it's not. And I don't know, should I jump into that right now?
Well, no. Well, we can just well, you can talk about whatever you want. If you want to go into that now, go ahead.
Yeah, so okay, so here's my theory is this. Like people think Project Bluebeam is going to be like the deception of this technology. Now, I ran a projection mapping company. So I actually did the cool projection onto sides of buildings and I can make it move and did some art. And then COVID happened and that part of that business died really pretty quick when all the events shut down. But the projection mapping is something I've looked quite a bit into. Okay, so there is technology that they can make spatial projected things that exist, but it's very it's very difficult to do in open space environments. You can do it in a closed space environment where you can shoot two beams of light, and where the beams of light hit, that
Hmm.
creates like a lit spot, a lit particle, and it requires millions of individual pixel beams shooting lasers to create this type of an illusion. There's something that's similar that they do it onto plexiglass, or you can go to Disneyland. I believe they got this kind of projection thing through the glass, and it projects the image of distance. And so there is similar technologies. They're all pretty weak for the most part. Even if it was good, though, it doesn't really matter. Like you need, there's so many limiting factors to how these technologies work. We're not quite yet there where we can shoot a beam of light and stop it and give a genuine hologram. We don't have that technology yet. Okay, maybe it's secretly somewhere out there yet, and it just hasn't been revealed. But either way, I think what's more important to know is that Project Bluebeam, in my opinion, is deception itself. Okay, so AI is your Project Bluebeam, guys.
Hmm.
AI, all of those fake radios, like you can go onto the computer, like they just want someone to make a fake video of Trump with his face, and you can use AI, and you can use
Hmm.
an AI voice and make him say a thing that he didn't say, and then suddenly it gets into like the government, and all of a sudden there's all people are like questioning, oh well, we caught this on film, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I didn't even say that, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, shoot, AI is so dangerous, we couldn't tell if it's real. We need more regulation on the internet. That's the direction they're going to pull with this, and that's what Project Bluebeam is. It's the deception, so that way it perpetuates like fake content being put out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that, that to me, the more I think about this, like logically, in the day and age we live in, it's like you don't have to fake things outside. You need to fake them inside their phones. You need to fake them
Yep.
in on their computer screens, because most people don't go outside.
Yeah,
Like
it's so
you know what I mean?
sad but
Like
true.
people are inside on their phones. They're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube. So it's kind of like, if if you told a lie and then you have the backing of the media, and obviously you can put together a very clear image that whatever you want to whatever took place outside, and that would be enough to convince people if the news said it was true. So obviously
Mm-hmm.
the real deception is not just tricking someone. It's like, what it's really, the magic is, now we want you to do this, we want you to think this, and we want this. So I think it's
Yeah, the
always like,
outcome.
so that, I mean, that's really what you always have to understand. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that, if they tried to scare you with something, okay, so now what's their move after that? Now that they've got you, that's where the deception really lies. Is they're going to
Mm-hmm.
scare they're going to scare people as much as they can in order to usurp more power. And I think that that's the whole point of, like, if, like, the whole threat of an alien invasion. It's like, it's interesting how, like, there's that famous Ronald Reagan speech in front of the UN where he's saying there's so much that actually unites us. It's like, we have all these common, we don't really have that many differences. I can only imagine if a alien threat came and basically
Mm-hmm.
you unite humanity, just like a la Independence Day.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put aside our petty differences in order to come together. And obviously, when they come together, it's going to be some big emergency. And therefore, hey, we don't got time to go through Congress and all these other world governments. We're just going to have this one guy do it. Don't
Yeah.
worry, he's real trustworthy. Don't worry, he's a savior to everyone. And
Yeah.
that's the real danger.
And I think it's interesting because it's like people don't see, like, the Bible warns us about this, guys. The Bible literally says in the end times there will be signs in the sky. And I don't know if you guys remember the big earthquake that happened over Turkey. Like when it
Yeah,
happened, there was a sign in the sky. There was this weird cloud that appeared, and everybody was like,
the
"Whoa!"
cinnamon
And then a
roll,
few,
the cinnamon
yeah,
roll.
cinnamon roll, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So like, and then all of a sudden this massive earthquake happened, right?
it's
So like
weird.
God shows signs in the sky, and then all of a sudden things happen, and people, and
Mm-hmm.
he's done this several times. So like this is kind of like the opera. So it's not like they need to fake the signs in the sky. What they need to do is they need to get you not to notice them. And so how are they going to do it? They're going to put a bunch of stuff out there to where we can fake all the signs with our technology and our phones, to where when you actually see a sign, like let's say there was some alien star person who came down from the sky and it actually happened, right? At this
Mm-hmm.
point we would be like, yeah, I don't know if that's real, you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
So yeah,
We would be
yeah.
like, I don't know if that's real, because you'd have to be really good. You have to be really good at video editing, like, and I do this stuff all the time, so I've gotten pretty darn good at recognizing when you see fakes. There was that that video with the Las Vegas alien, there was a video that came out right afterwards that was very obviously AI in my opinion, but to a normal person, you wouldn't have been able to tell the subtle differences. And so like a real event happened, and then someone made a fake video
Yeah.
of the person's fence with this AI alien in the backyard, and it's like, dude, that's creating the deception because now you don't know what even to believe at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's where I actually thought it's funny. You go back to that, back to February when there was the White Noise movie was out on Netflix and all the things were going on,
Right?
and I was making that connection almost like because obviously what do we know about white noise? White noise is like is kind of like a droning noise that kind of drowns out all the other noises, and to me
Yep.
that's kind of almost like
Wow.
is that what the news cycle is
Mhm.
like where it's like there's so much noise that like eventually it's like I'm just going to put my own white noise on. I'm going to ignore it all. And I'm
Mhm.
just going to believe what I want to believe. And I think that's really where it's
Mhm.
like, where, yeah, I can't know, like, is that alien real? I mean, I can't deal with this.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to go back to ignoring everything now.
Yeah, dude, it's so ironic that they called that movie White Noise because
Yeah.
what you just said is exactly what Project Bluebeam is, in my opinion.
Mm.
It's literally the assertion that like, well, apparently prophetic things happen in the news, so when prophetic things happen in your Bible, it's not that big a deal
Yeah.
because it happened in a movie, right, guys? It happened in a movie. It was prophetic. It's just literally clouding people's judgment with white noise to think that
Yeah.
that even when you see the real prophetic things happen, because Satan's trying to constantly mimic the prophetic nature of God.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
how he does that is that's why you guys see this stuff in the media all the time. They say these things and then it happens. They're mimicking the prophetic nature of God, but it's not the same. See, God says things are going to happen and they happen no matter what.
Yeah.
Whereas these people say that's going to happen and then they make it happen
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
you
Mm.
believe that it was something of prophetic nature. Like, but that just shows how much authority they have. It's like if a parent was like, I'm gonna take your toys away, if you do this thing, and then they do the thing, and then the parent goes and takes the toy away. Well, duh, the parent has all authority. Of course he can take the toy away. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So it's like silly comparison. Like, when it's like, yeah, the people, the controllers have the authority to do this kind of stuff. So it's not even prophetic. They're just straight up telling you what they're gonna do, and then they do it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that especially I remember back in the course I was joking on those times, and I remember that it was like right around the time the Abrahamic faith houses were opening, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna forgive you guys if you didn't notice this happen because what there was massive train crashes, toxic disasters, there was like UFOs getting shot down, and when you realize
Mhm.
how insane the news cycle has been the past couple of years, it's like when every day is crazy, no days are crazy,
Yep.
because it's like because it's not unusual to hear
Mhm.
crazy news. Oh, there's a
Mhm.
like I said, it is kind of mind blowing to know that there is a UFO guy at the Pentagon. Like this is not made up. There's
Yeah.
actually a UFO guy, and he said there may be a mothership in our galaxy is the origination of all the UFO activity, and no one cared that he said that. I mean, it's like wait. First of all, I was like, wait a minute, they got a UFO guy. When did I thought they said new UFOs didn't exist like 5 years ago, and now they got a UFO guy, and he's talking about a mothership. Oh, you mean like are you talking about like Independence Day? Well, like you know what I mean? Like this is movie type lingo, and it's like he wasn't talking about it in any other way, but exactly how you would imagine he's talking about a mothership.
Mhm.
What?
That's insane. And people just like glaze over it because of the white noise and all the stuff around them. That's
Yeah.
that's the that's the Project Bluebeam, guys. That's the real Project Bluebeam. It's the fact that when you like, let's say Jesus actually shows up and a bunch of people disappear like that, like the rapture typical thing that people think is going to happen. Okay, let's say that actually happened and some people caught it on film and they started
Mm.
posting on the internet. People would be like, no, that's not what really happened.
No.
They would be like, people just fell over dead. Okay, a bunch of people died from the COVID disease. Like, like people
Yeah.
would like almost justify and be like, that's CGI. That's CGI when that cloud thing that they saw.
Well,
Like it's insane.
most people are so selfish that it wouldn't take long to get them off that news cycle anyways. Because it's like, what about me though? So like I think that's what happens to most people. It's like that. It's almost like if they, of course, you understand that they're going to offer you something after this bad thing happens. So that it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, as long as I'm taken care of, who cares? But I couldn't help but think about like, it's interesting, like we were saying. So if they fake something on your TikTok, fake something on YouTube or on your computer, what about I think the perfect comp to this is everybody knows it. Well, I don't know if everybody knows, but this is old school. War of the Worlds, Orson
Mm.
Welles.
Where they
When
faked it on the radio.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, we always heard that that
Mm-hmm.
people were tricked because like they weren't trying to trick people. But I mean, now that I look back at that, it's like I think they were trying to deceive
I
people.
think they were trying to see how viable of a reaction they could get out of
So
people.
so obviously this
They,
is before TVs. They got a radio program, and Orson Welles is reading a like almost like it's a news broadcast of like an alien attack, and people
yep.
are freaked, or at least supposedly people freaked out. And it's like that's the whole point. Is like
They
the
didn't tell anybody that it was either. They just started broadcasting like it was a real event
yeah.
taking place, but they were reading from this book called The War of the Worlds.
And like I
And
said,
so,
yeah. And if you think about it, like what you have is like if that happened today with all the news behind it saying, let's just say that. Well, I guess we probably should have prefaced this. So obviously, if you guys aren't paying attention, there was like an incident in Las Vegas where people claimed to see like an 8-foot being after like something supposedly fell out of the sky, some kind of green light. And
mm,
they had a cop saying,
mm,
oh, he's interviewing people and saying, I wouldn't believe this, but my partner said he saw it. And then they're all saying they saw it. Okay, legit. But the interesting part, that story was getting a lot of run. Like a lot of people were going with that, big mainstream news sources. So like I always like that's what I really start to get skeptical of, like what are they going to do with that information now? And I think that's what like
mm.
so if they came out and everybody got behind it, and obviously one day they produce something, or they could say, "Yo, yeah, the government says we've got the being, we're holding it, we're doing tests on it, or something like that." If they said that and they told you to believe it was true, most people would. And then therefore that, okay, then they say, "Well, gosh, these things say there's more of them and they're coming. We need to prepare." And what would
Mm.
people be doing? Like, I think that they could urge people to do all kinds of things with that kind of information.
Oh yeah, it could force people into all kinds of mass hysteria and obedience to laws and whatever regulations they want. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
everybody, you all need to be chipped now because aliens are coming. Take the mark. like,
But of course, it's like you said, it's like I think
mm,
I can't remember who brought this up in what context, but it was like the what was like the digital ID saying like not necessarily to go to the stores, but almost like to say like that I'm talking to Brian right now and not somebody who says he's Brian. Like so
yeah.
we have to verify that it's actually a human on the other. You have your little bot
Mm-hmm.
test, and I think that because when you see those videos, and I've seen I'm sure you guys have seen those things circling around social media where it's like somebody takes this cube and they put it over their head and all of a sudden they look like Justin Bieber, and then they're changed and they're dancing around. What was the guy also was a Jared Leto,
Mm-hmm.
and Jared Leto's dancing around with somebody who looks almost identical to him. And if you didn't know, like, yeah, those deep fakes things, it's like, yeah, so even if we saw a real alien, somebody like me would say, well, I see it on my
Mm-hmm.
computer and it looks real, but I mean, how do I actually know
Mm-hmm.
that's real? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and the answer is
You don't.
we don't. We don't. We don't really know it's real.
Yep. And you got to be pretty, and like honestly, you got to be really sharp. Like I've seen a lot of video footage, and like because I've done a lot of video editing and stuff as well, and have been in the technology world, like I've gotten, and I'm an artist and digitally paint. I've gotten pretty good at recognizing like fake stuff, but it's like it's hard to spot. And like if I didn't have the training and the experience on some of these videos that I've seen, I'd be like it's so easily clueless. Like you'd be so easily clueless to what's really happening, and it would just create white noise and
Mm-hmm.
deceive you into whatever project bluebeam they're putting on you that really is happening.
I mean, I think that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, to take it back to like, obviously, what we should do as Christians,
Mm-hmm.
though, it's like when you understand like that we should not be so afraid to lose this flesh. Like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, the saints who overcame where was the word of their
Love their
testimony,
lives.
the blood of the lamb, and they did not love their lives unto death. So, I mean, it's like that's why it's always
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, so they tried to scare you in some kind of way, and it's okay if they said some kind of thing, there was a threat outside. I mean, it's okay to be afraid at some point. Obviously, we are built in with that kind of instinct. But now where does that fear, you obviously have to go to God and say, hey, you know what? I'm willing to give this thing up at any time if my time. So I think that's why, like, that's really the only way to do this. It's like, you really think about, as Christians, we walk without sight, we walk by faith. So it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, well, I really don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to trust God, whether things are good or they're bad. Because the one thing you don't do is, hey, yeah, now we got to chip you to make sure you're actually a real human, because these aliens, not only that, because they got cloaking technology and they can look just like us. So now we need to know if you're really you on the outside too.
Wow, who knows? Yeah, I just know. I just find it interesting. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. And it's interesting to point that fear is a spirit. You
Yeah.
know, like
Mm-hmm,
that's
mm-hmm.
super interesting to think about. And so, like, we got to be in that space where we're not being governed by fear. You know, like when fear starts to govern your actions and governs what you're doing, like, dude, bro, demons are involved. Like, it's a spirit of fear governing people into doing things that they wouldn't normally do. And it's like, or, you know, and that's definitely gonna, like, that's what's gonna drive so many people, is that spirit of fear, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but I think that, okay, but so now that we kind of gave our own take on it, I do think we should at least obviously talk about what a lot of people believe. And I did a video about this not that long ago, and it was about the movie Spider-Man: Far From Home. And if you guys
Yeah.
haven't seen this movie, it's all right. It's got Jake Gyllenhaal in it, and obviously, Tom Holland, Spider-Man. So Jake Gyllenhaal plays the Spider-Man villain called Mysterio, and he's an illusionist. And so he creates these obviously fake illusions. And in the movie, it's super interesting because Mysterio at the beginning of the movie fights off these monsters. He's like, he saves the city. Like, I think they're in Paris. And so he fights off this like monster. And so all of a sudden he's the hero. Well, later they show him in some kind of, like, obviously some room where he's got all these drones that got little projectors on them. They got little machine guns on it. And literally he starts talking about how he's got to maximize the damage and, like, in potentially casualties in order to make himself a bigger hero when he stops this thing. And, like, literally he's like, I'm trying to fool 7 billion people. And I think that he was having problems with one of the drones. And you're like, so I mean, like, that is like, I think that I'm more of the mindset of you, that, like, I think it's going to be something a little more less impressive than that. But it is interesting to think, like, we really don't know the technology they fully have. I think that, and I think that that's always been like the question about, like, okay, was that UFO something the government doesn't know about, or it's something they do, and so they're happy to put the UFO stamp on it, because a lot of people will just dismiss it because they don't believe in space aliens,
Yeah.
rightfully so, and they'll just say, yeah, I don't know what it was. Meanwhile, it's like they got this German technology from the 1930s, and that's actually what they're doing, and they're happy to say, oh yeah, aliens probably, and they're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't say anything else.
Exactly. And you know, and it's interesting that that alien craft crashed. I think it was over Nevada. That, like, just a few, I don't know, maybe less than a month before that, there was another spacecraft that was totally metallic that got captured from like 5 different people's cameras, and even they had a military plane fly over it, like checking it out, and it was just hovering. This pod, this metallic shiny pod, that was floating, suspended in the midair, and you're kind of like, well, why would they have flown a military plane over it, if it wasn't, if it was something that we actually knew already? I mean, like, they're just trying to mess with us. I mean, I guess they could orchestrate that to make it seem more legit, but yeah, like, we don't know the technology that they have. Like, they could be military technology, or it could be something else. It could be demonic technology, that we just demonic fallen angel technology that just has not been fully exposed yet. But it's
Yeah,
coming, guys. It's
I mean,
coming.
yeah, it could be one or the other, but it is interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
and Brian teased, we were talking about, so faking the second coming of Christ. I think that's where a lot of people really get into, like, could they
Mm-hmm.
do something like that? And obviously, what could that do to people? And the crazy part about that's one of those conspiracy facts that the CIA literally floated the idea of faking the second coming of Christ. And there was something called Project Mongoose. And so obviously Bluebeam is kind of the conspiracy theory, but, like, Project Mongoose was all these different kinds of ways they were trying to assassinate Fidel Castro back in the 1960s. And they had a colonel named Lansdale who actually floated the idea that they were going to fire up star shell shells from a submarine up into the air. They were literally going to use like a loudspeaker and a projector, and they were going to fake the second coming of Christ. And with
Crazy.
And obviously El Cristo was going to speak Spanish, so he was going to speak Spanish to the Cubans and say, "Hey, I'm back. Overthrow your government. Stage a coup." Like that was like, of course they said we were just reading about this. This was literally read. This was in the Senate hearing where they were. I guess one of the senators was mocking Lansdale for doing this, but this is not a conspiracy theory. They literally talked about doing this. That's the crazy. Like that's the crazy thing is that these things are out there in these Freedom of Information Acts. So like look them up, and it's like it really is like the whole idea of like truth is stranger than fiction. Like that if you've ever had a crazy thought, those people at the CIA have thought about doing it or have done it.
Or have done it for sure, honestly. At this point, there's so much CIA like secret operations that nobody even knows about that it's terrible.
No, and that's the interesting part is like that's why when you say that's why like guys like me when I watch movies and anytime the CIA is brought up, it's like you can't even fathom like the stuff that they've done and like especially the stuff when it's like they're talking about obviously all this kind of like this predictive programming to lead us to 9/11 and stuff like that. It blows my mind. The MK Ultra stuff, all I guess we mentioned that in the Taylor Swift video. MK Ultra, like Project Mongoose, Project Bluebeam, whatever you want to call it, like it's all about mind control and deception. I mean, I think that's the whole point. That's the whole point.
We're gonna have to do a whole video on MK Ultra and hypnosis also soon. Just a side note for future.
We almost have to just make it almost like and this would obviously be maybe a multi-part series about like Operation Paperclip. You know, this is when the obviously we beat the Germans back in the day and we bring over their best scientists over to America.
Okay, we don't talk about it. That's our next episode.
No, but I mean, we need to do that. But obviously that was such a transformative place in our basically our history of like all the things that those scientists did and continue to do, and obviously their work is being carried on. And I think that's obviously
and
I think
Klaus Schwab was German, by the way, and his dad worked for the Nazis.
I joked the one time about Klaus Schwab where I was like, he seems like he's trying to be an Austin Powers villain. Like, you know what I mean? It's you know what I mean?
Black little outfit he has.
What about when he had like this, like the Star Trek outfit? And you're just it's like, is he trying to play this up? Because it's like, it seems like he is, but like, I don't know. I mean, he's just saying these things and it's kind of working, I guess. It's working. It's working for him. I guess he's got a pretty powerful position.
Yep. Sweet. Well, that's pretty much it with Project Bluebeam. I think we kind of touched on all of it now.
Yeah, I would say so. I guess just closing thoughts is that like, obviously we walk by faith, not by sight. So don't believe your lying eyes. And obviously, and do not give in to that spirit of fear. Obviously, we always go back to 100%. We know one thing is true, and Jesus is coming back. So it's kind of like, the voice of the good shepherd, you'll know the counterfeit. And obviously, hopefully we can be around to guide you guys and say, hey, just be skeptical. Always be skeptical.
Have your oil lamps ready too.
100%. All right, guys, we love you, and we guys will see you next time.
Sounds good. Bye.